For nearly 5,000 years, we've been told a simple story. Pharaoh Khufu built this colossal monument as his tomb, constructed by thousands of workers in just 20 short years, armed with nothing but primitive copper chisels, ropes, and sheer determination. But here's the problem. Practically everything you've ever learned about the pyramids isn't based on solid facts. It's based on educated guesses at best. So what if the real story isn't just incomplete, but deliberately hidden? At the heart of this mystery stands one man, Dr. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's most powerful archaeologist. For decades, Hawass alone has controlled every excavation, every discovery, and every ancient secret buried beneath Egypt's sands. But here's where it gets strange. Rather than welcoming fresh ideas and discoveries, Hawass is infamous for blocking independent research and silencing alternative theories, especially ones that threaten the official narrative he's worked so hard to uphold. I'm no conspiracy theorist, but why exactly has Hawass fought so fiercely to stop certain explorations? Why shut down research at the very moment groundbreaking discoveries are made discoveries that might rewrite human history itself? Is he protecting Egypt's heritage, or is he protecting something else entirely? If you've ever wondered whether there's more to the pyramids than meets the eye, trust me, you'll want to keep watching, because tonight, we're diving deep into evidence that's baffled scientists, frustrated archaeologists, and left historians speechless. From hidden chambers sealed for thousands of years to precision stonework that's difficult to replicate even today, the reality behind this monument is far stranger and far older than mainstream Egyptology admits. Could the Great Pyramid really have been built using basic hand tools, ropes, and wooden rollers as historians claim? Or was it constructed with ancient technology we've yet to comprehend? And if so, who exactly built it and why? Tonight, we'll peel back the layers of secrecy, confront the gatekeepers of history, and reveal evidence hidden in plain sight. Because sometimes, history's greatest secrets aren't lost. They're simply buried by those who prefer that you never ask questions. The answers you're about to discover might just change everything. When most of us think about ancient Egypt, we picture golden tombs, intricate hieroglyphs, and the iconic Great Pyramid of Giza rising out of the desert sands. For years, we've been told this incredible monument was built around 2550 BC by Pharaoh Khufu, intended as a grand tomb constructed by thousands of workers, armed with little more than basic hand tools. On the surface, this seems like an impressive example of ancient human achievement. But here's the thing, the closer you look, the less convincing this explanation actually becomes. Surprisingly, there's very little solid evidence backing this popular version of history, and it turns out many of our assumptions might be built on shaky ground. Could it be that we've misunderstood who really built the Great Pyramid and how they managed such an astonishing accomplishment? Consider this surprising fact. Even though the Great Pyramid is incredibly important historically, there aren't any clear inscriptions from Khufu's era explicitly stating that he built it. Ancient Egyptians carefully recorded almost every aspect of their lives, from ordinary daily activities to elaborate religious rituals and significant royal events. Yet strangely, they didn't leave behind any clear documentation about constructing their most remarkable monument. Archaeologists sometimes reference faint marks and symbols discovered deep within hidden chambers, but these were found hundreds of years after the pyramid was first explored, raising serious doubts about their authenticity. After all, just because someone else's name appears on a structure doesn't necessarily mean they were the ones who built it. One of the most puzzling inconsistencies of all involves the very purpose of the Great Pyramid itself. Mainstream Egyptology consistently maintains that the pyramid was built as Pharaoh Khufu's elaborate tomb, yet, unlike every other known royal Egyptian tomb, the Great Pyramid contains no inscriptions glorifying Khufu, no decorative artifacts, no precious grave goods, and crucially, no trace of Khufu's remains. If the pyramid was indeed constructed as a royal burial place, we would expect extensive evidence like treasures, funerary artifacts, and inscriptions typical of royal tombs, but none of these have ever been discovered within the Great Pyramid. This striking absence raises a significant question. Could the pyramid's true purpose have been something entirely different, perhaps more sophisticated or functional than historians have traditionally assumed? An even greater mystery is the astonishing precision and complexity of the pyramid itself. Modern architects and engineers still marvel at how accurately the Great Pyramid aligns with true north, precise to within fractions of a single degree. Inside the pyramid, huge granite blocks weighing up to 80 tons each show evidence of advanced machining and precise drilling techniques that seem far beyond what historians assume ancient Egyptians could achieve. With simple copper tools, engineer Christopher Dunn carefully studied these granite stones, noting perfectly round drill cores and remarkably precise cuts features extremely difficult, if not impossible, to replicate using primitive methods. Recent attempts by modern researchers to duplicate these cuts with copper chisels have failed dramatically. Their tools quickly became unusable, and they made minimal progress even after days of continuous effort. This raises an important question. If even today's technology struggles with these tasks, how did ancient Egyptians achieve such precision thousands of years ago? An equally puzzling detail comes from inside the pyramid's intricate network of passageways and chambers. To construct such complicated internal structures, workers would have needed reliable sources of light to see clearly and navigate safely. Traditionally, historians suggest torches or oil lamps provided this lighting. Yet astonishingly, examinations of these chambers and tunnels show no traces of soot, smoke residue, or scorch marks anywhere on the ceilings or walls, something that would be unavoidable if traditional lighting methods were used. This surprising absence challenges the conventional explanation and raises fascinating questions. Could the pyramid builders have had access to some form of advanced lighting technology? Or does this hint at a completely different method of construction altogether? These discoveries suggest an intriguing possibility. The original pyramid builders may have possessed knowledge or technology much more advanced than what mainstream historians currently recognize. Yet instead of openly considering these ideas, mainstream archaeology, particularly under Dr. Zahi Hawass, has strongly defended the established historical narrative. Independent researchers like Robert Bauval, who proposed the Orion correlation theory, suggesting the pyramids align exactly with Orion's belt, as it appeared thousands of years before Khufu, have faced significant resistance. Similarly, researchers like Robert Schoch and John Anthony West have found intriguing geological evidence of extensive water erosion around the Great Sphinx. In fact, John Anthony West clearly showed that the unusual weathering patterns at the Sphinx's base were caused by heavy rainfall and flowing water, not wind or sand erosion as most Egyptologists typically suggest. The last time there was enough rainfall in the Sahara Desert to cause this level of water erosion was over 12,000 years ago, right at the end of the last ice age. This fascinating timeline hints that the Sphinx might actually have been built by a much older civilization long before ancient Egypt as we know it even existed. Yet, even though this explanation is backed by solid science and is currently the most convincing theory, we have mainstream Egyptologists still reject or overlook it. Surprisingly, they haven't provided many other convincing explanations either, leaving this compelling puzzle about the Sphinx's true age still waiting to be solved. This raises a critical question. Why the resistance to exploring these alternative possibilities? Is the hesitation truly about protecting Egypt's heritage? Or could it be about preserving professional reputations, academic traditions, or even national pride? If there genuinely is nothing extraordinary beneath Egypt's sands, then why such persistent secrecy and reluctance to investigate further? Perhaps there's advanced, forgotten technology hidden within the pyramid technology that could fundamentally alter our understanding of ancient civilizations, challenging everything we thought we knew about humanity's past. As we journey deeper into this mystery, the answers we uncover may prove far more surprising and far more significant than we ever imagined. The mystery surrounding who really built the Great Pyramid becomes even more intriguing when we venture inside, because what lies beneath the surface is far stranger than you'd expect. Usually, we're told about just a few rooms, the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, and some connecting passageways. But recent discoveries have revealed something astonishing. The pyramid might be hiding far more than historians ever realized. Back in the early 1990s, a German engineer named Rudolf Gantenbrink made headlines by exploring narrow tunnels inside the Queen's chamber shafts experts believed were purely symbolic, leading nowhere. Using a small robotic camera carefully guided through these tight spaces, he uncovered something extraordinary. A mysterious limestone door fitted neatly into the tunnel, complete with two small copper handles. Nicknamed Gantenbrink's door, this strange discovery captivated the world instantly. And here is why this matters. Metal fittings like these copper handles had never been found anywhere else. Inside the pyramid, hinting this door protected something important. But just as Rudolf and his team were poised to discover what lay behind it, Egyptian authorities suddenly halted their investigation without clear explanation. After almost a decade of public anticipation, in 2002, another team sponsored by National Geographic returned. They drilled a tiny hole through Gantenbrink's door, only to encounter another sealed limestone slab directly behind it, and incredibly, that second door remains unexplored to this day, despite repeated requests from researchers. Worldwide, further investigation continues to be denied by Egyptian authorities. This sudden resistance at such a critical point naturally raises the question, what is behind the persistent caution? Are officials genuinely concerned about preserving ancient treasures? Or is there something else they prefer to keep hidden? Then, in 2017, the intrigue deepened even further. A team of international scientists used cutting-edge technology called Moon radiography, essentially an advanced type of cosmic ray scanning to examine the pyramid's interior. Without disturbing it, the results were astonishing. They discovered an enormous hidden void located just above the grand gallery, a massive, previously unknown chamber large enough to rival all the known rooms within the pyramid. Yet, there's no visible entrance and no one has any clue what its purpose might be. Scientists immediately hailed this as one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in decades. But once again, requests for deeper exploration have been consistently denied by Egyptian authorities, citing vague concerns about safety and preservation. Beyond these hidden chambers and sealed-off passages, physical evidence inside the pyramid itself challenges traditional views. Researchers, including engineer Christopher Dunn, have meticulously documented markings and patterns that clearly show evidence of advanced tooling. Dunn closely studied granite blocks in the king's chamber, noting perfectly drilled holes and precision marks consistent with advanced machinery, far beyond the capability of simple copper chisels. Granite is among Earth's hardest stones. Basic ancient tools would rapidly wear out or break entirely. So how exactly could ancient builders achieve this thousands of years ago? All these strange findings, hidden chambers, mysterious doors, precision tooling suggests something remarkable. Perhaps the pyramid's builders had access to advanced technology, or maybe they inherited knowledge from a much older civilization, lost to history. Yet despite these intriguing possibilities, mainstream archaeology maintains a cautious, even defensive, approach to further exploration. It might simply be that archaeologists are concerned about protecting Egypt's heritage from sensational claims, but this caution may unintentionally prevent us from discovering vital truths hidden right beneath our feet. Ultimately, we're left with several compelling mysteries. What secrets are concealed behind those sealed limestone doors? What purpose does the massive hidden chamber discovered in 2017 serve? And could exploring these hidden spaces finally reveal who truly built the Great Pyramid and how they accomplished this astonishing feat? With so many mysteries still hidden deep within the Great Pyramid, one person stands firmly between us and the answers: Dr. Zahi Hawass, the man whose decisions have shaped not only what the public knows about ancient Egypt, but more importantly what we don't. For decades, Hawass has dominated Egyptian archaeology, charismatic, outspoken, and fiercely protective of Egypt's ancient heritage. He's held powerful positions like Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities and Minister of Antiquities. These roles have given him unparalleled control over who gets permission to dig, what research can be conducted, and ultimately, which discoveries ever see the light of day. But behind his passionate promotion of Egyptian culture lies a much darker reality, a rigid and secretive system that has consistently blocked researchers attempting to challenge established historical narratives. Now, supporters of Hawass could argue he's simply safeguarding Egypt's priceless treasures from speculative or responsible theories. But could there be another, more unsettling possibility? Could Hawass's strict regulation intentionally keep certain truths hidden to preserve comfortable, established historical narratives, protecting professional reputations, academic traditions, or even Egypt's national pride? Let me know what you think in the comments below when this video is over, because by carefully deciding who can research and precisely what can be publicly revealed, Hawass has effectively positioned himself as the ultimate gatekeeper of Egyptian history, possibly silencing discoveries capable of rewriting our entire understanding of the ancient world. Hawass's legacy is complicated. On one hand, he has passionately promoted Egyptian culture, dramatically raising Egypt's global profile. But this influence may have come at an unseen cost. His restrictive policies might unintentionally, or perhaps intentionally, have prevented critical exploration and discovery, leaving crucial truths about ancient Egypt still buried beneath the sands. This leaves us with a troubling question: is Dr. Zahi Hawass genuinely protecting Egypt's heritage, Or is he guarding something else, secrets that could rewrite history entirely? Until Egyptian archaeology embraces genuine transparency, we may never know exactly what's hidden behind those carefully guarded doors. With these questions still lingering, let's explore some alternative theories that mainstream archaeology seems reluctant to discuss. Independent researchers have discovered compelling evidence that challenges the official story we've always been told. Earlier, we mentioned Dr. Robert Schoch's fascinating findings on the Sphinx, suggesting its origins might stretch back far beyond accepted timelines, potentially linked to an older, forgotten civilization. Building on this possibility is Robert Bauval's remarkable Orion correlation theory. Bauval noticed something extraordinary. The three main pyramids at Giza perfectly mirror the stars of Orion's belt, but not as they appeared during Pharaoh Khufu's reign. Instead, their alignment precisely matches the constellation's position around 10,500 BC, thousands of years earlier than traditional history accepts. This isn't likely just a coincidence. Orion held deep significance in ancient Egyptian culture, symbolizing the god Osiris, ruler of the afterlife, rebirth, and the eternal cycle of life and death. If Bauval's theory holds true, it could mean the pyramid builders had a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, deliberately encoding their monuments with celestial meaning knowledge historians typically believe ancient Egyptians simply didn't possess. Taking things even further, some researchers suggest Egypt's impressive monuments might actually connect back to a much older, lost civilization, one with advanced technology and skills far surpassing anything historians currently recognize. Engineer Christopher Dunn meticulously examined the granite blocks inside the Great Pyramid and discovered evidence of precise drilling marks and advanced tool cuts that primitive copper chisels simply couldn't produce. Granite is incredibly hard, and even with modern hand tools, precise cuts like Dunn observed would be complicated. Could ancient Egyptians really have managed such intricate craftsmanship with basic tools, or were they assisted by technologies from another civilization entirely? Another puzzling inconsistency surrounds how the Egyptians transported enormous granite blocks to the pyramid site. Some of these massive stones weigh up to 80 tons each, and their source was located over 500 miles away from the Giza Plateau. Mainstream historians have provided no convincing explanation for how ancient Egyptians could have moved these immense stones across such vast distances, especially without the aid of wheels or advanced machinery. Even today, transporting stones of this size and weight would present extraordinary logistical challenges, requiring heavy-duty equipment, specialized transport vehicles, and extensive planning. This significant gap in the traditional narrative raises an obvious question. How exactly could ancient builders have achieved what would still be incredibly challenging for modern engineers? Graham Hancock expands on this theory, proposing that there was once an advanced global civilization, now forgotten, lost due to a devastating global catastrophe or gradual decline. Hancock points to archaeological sites worldwide, notably Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, an impressive complex of temples dating back around 12,000 years as evidence of this vanished civilization. Hancock suggests that the sophisticated knowledge possessed by these ancient people wasn't lost entirely. Rather, surviving fragments were passed down, eventually influencing the early Egyptians. Researchers like John Anthony West and Dr. Robert Schoch echo this view, suggesting the Egyptians didn't spontaneously develop their incredible architectural, astronomical, and mathematical abilities overnight. Instead, they propose that these advanced capabilities were inherited from a much older civilization, explaining why ancient Egyptian culture appears to emerge suddenly, fully formed and sophisticated, rather than gradually developing over time. Although mainstream Egyptology typically dismisses these theories as improbable or even impossible, growing evidence makes them increasingly difficult to ignore. Consider, for instance, the mysterious Assyrian temple at Abydos, constructed from massive granite blocks. This structure displays advanced precision and craftsmanship matching what we've seen inside the Great Pyramid, skills supposedly beyond the reach of early Egyptians. Similarly, the massive granite boxes at the Serapeum of Saqqara show extraordinary precision that would challenge even today's modern machinery, let alone Bronze Age tools. These remarkable discoveries seriously challenge the established historical narrative about ancient Egypt, hinting at hidden layers of history still waiting to be uncovered. Is it possible that mainstream archaeology has overlooked or perhaps intentionally ignored evidence pointing to an older, highly advanced civilization behind Egypt's most iconic monuments? If so, who exactly were these mysterious builders? And how did they possess knowledge and technology far beyond their time? After looking closely at everything, we've explored the puzzling lack of inscriptions, clearly linking Pharaoh Khufu to the Great Pyramid, the incredibly precise stonework that seems far too advanced for simple tools, sealed chambers still waiting to be opened, and evidence hinting at a much older origin. We left questioning the official version of history we've always been taught. These fascinating discoveries suggest that the pyramid's builders likely had knowledge and techniques far more advanced than mainstream history gives them credit for. While this idea might seem unusual at first, each new clue we find makes it more believable. Perhaps the ancient Egyptians knew more than we realize, and their advanced techniques were simply lost over time. Or maybe these monuments were actually built by an earlier civilization, whose skills were passed down or adapted by the Egyptians later on. But if these ideas are so intriguing, why does mainstream archaeology still hesitate to explore them fully? One reason is that accepting an older, more advanced civilization could mean drastically changing the story we currently accept. Historians, archaeologists, and even entire countries have built their identities and reputations around the traditional timeline. Rewriting history books, museum exhibits, and deeply held ideas isn't easy. For Egypt, acknowledging that its famous pyramids might predate their known civilization or might not be purely Egyptian creations touches sensitive issues of national pride and identity. By resisting deeper exploration into hidden chambers, ancient technologies, and alternative historical explanations, mainstream archaeology may unintentionally be keeping important truths hidden beneath the desert sands. Imagine if we found clear evidence beneath Egypt's desertivin, advanced civilization forgotten by history. Such a discovery wouldn't just change our view of Egypt, it could alter our entire understanding of human history, challenging everything we've assumed about our ancestors and the incredible things they might have accomplished. Standing at the brink of these profound mysteries, we must ask ourselves, will archaeologists finally open these sealed doors and explore what's hidden inside? Or will the secrets of the Great Pyramid remain locked away, waiting for future generations brave enough to seek the truth? The Great Pyramid is not the only monument at Giza that whispers of a history far older than the one we know. Its silent companion, the Great Sphinx, may hold the most conclusive and controversial evidence of all. For centuries, we have been told that this colossal statue, with the body of a lion and the head of a man, was carved around 2500 BC by the order of Pharaoh Khufu, the builder of the second pyramid. The face, it is said, is his. But what if this story, repeated in countless textbooks and documentaries, is completely wrong? What if the Sphinx is so old that it witnessed a world that no longer exists, a world of rain? The key to this mystery lies not in inscriptions or artifacts, but in the stone itself. In the 1990s, a geologist from Boston University named Dr. Robert Schoch, alongside author and independent Egyptologist John Anthony West, conducted a detailed geological analysis of the Sphinx and its surrounding enclosure. What they found was so profound, it threatened to overturn a century of Egyptological consensus. Schoch, an expert in rock weathering and erosion, noticed something that archaeologists had either overlooked or dismissed. The body of the Sphinx and the walls of the pit from which it was carved show a distinct pattern of erosion, deep, vertical fissures, and a rounded, undulating profile. To a geologist, this pattern is an unmistakable signature of water erosion, specifically erosion caused by heavy, sustained rainfall running down the sides of the stone for a very long period. This discovery presents a monumental problem for the official timeline. The Giza Plateau is part of the Sahara Desert, one of the most arid regions on the planet. While it does rain there occasionally, it is nowhere near enough to cause the kind of deep weathering seen on the Sphinx. The last time the climate in this part of the world was wet enough to produce such rainfall was during a period known as the African Humid Period, which ended between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago, long before the supposed reign of Pharaoh Khufu. This geological evidence suggests a staggering conclusion. The Sphinx must have been carved before the end of this rainy period, making it at least 7,000 years old, and possibly as old as 12,000 years, placing its origins deep within the last ice age. This theory, known as the Sphinx water erosion hypothesis, sent shockwaves through the world of Egyptology. The reaction from the mainstream archaeological community was swift and almost uniformly hostile. Zahi Hawass and others vehemently rejected the findings. They proposed alternative explanations for the erosion, arguing that it was caused not by rain, but by wind and sand, or by the natural flaking of poor quality limestone. However, these explanations do not hold up to scrutiny. Wind erosion in a desert environment creates sharp, horizontal grooves, not deep, vertical channels. The other monuments on the Giza Plateau, which are made of similar limestone and have been exposed to the same wind and sand for millennia, show exactly this kind of horizontal weathering. The Sphinx is different. Furthermore, the blocks used to build the temples in front of the Sphinx were quarried from the very same limestone pit when the Sphinx was carved. If the erosion was simply due to poor quality rock, then these temple blocks should show the same degree of weathering. But they don't. They are much better preserved, showing only the effects of wind and sand. This indicates that the main body of the Sphinx and its enclosure walls were exposed to the elements for a much longer period of time, enduring thousands of years of rainfall before those temples were ever built. The evidence strongly suggests that the Sphinx is far older than the rest of the Giza complex, a relic from a forgotten, prehistoric age that was later discovered and incorporated into the pyramid site by the dynastic Egyptians. This idea of an older civilization is not as far-fetched as it might sound. At Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, archaeologists have unearthed a massive temple complex with intricately carved stone pillars that dates back nearly 12,000 years, proving that so-called primitive hunter-gatherers were capable of monumental construction long before the invention of agriculture or writing. Could the original builders of the Sphinx have been a similar, now lost civilization that flourished during the last ice age? Graham Hancock, a proponent of this theory, argues that a sophisticated global civilization was wiped out by a cataclysmic event around 12,000 years ago, likely a comet impact that triggered the Younger Dryas climate change and catastrophic global flooding. The survivors, he suggests, passed on their knowledge to the fledgling cultures that followed, including the ancient Egyptians. In this view, the Sphinx is not a beginning, but an inner monument built by a lost civilization as a marker, a message to the future. This theory also helps to explain the strange silence surrounding the Sphinx in early Egyptian texts. If it was already ancient and its origins were a mystery even to the pyramid builders, it makes sense that they would not claim it as their own. Instead, they revered it as a powerful, primordial deity, a guardian of the sacred plateau. The inventory stela, which describes Pharaoh Khufu finding the Sphinx buried in sand and restoring it, suddenly makes perfect sense. It wasn't late period propaganda, it was an accurate historical account. This would also explain why the head of the Sphinx seems disproportionately small compared to its massive lined body. Some researchers, including John Anthony West, have argued that the head was originally that of a lion and was later recarved into the likeness of a pharaoh, likely Khafre, by the dynastic Egyptians. This would have been their way of claiming a monument whose origins they did not understand, literally stamping their own face onto a much older legacy. The implications of this are profound. It means that the story of human civilization does not begin in Sumeria and Egypt around 3000 BC. It has a much older, lost chapter. It suggests that our ancestors were far more advanced, far more capable, and their history far more dramatic than we have ever been led to believe. And yet, despite the compelling geological evidence, the official story remains unchanged. The gatekeepers of history have refused to engage with the data, often resorting to ridicule and dismissal rather than scientific debate. The question is why? Is it simply academic inertia, a reluctance to abandon a century of established theory? Or is it something more? Is there a fear that acknowledging the true age of the Sphinx would open a Pandora's box of uncomfortable questions about human origins, lost technologies, and the very nature of history itself? The Sphinx sits silently in the desert, its gaze fixed on the eastern horizon, a geological and historical anomaly. The stone itself tells a story of a world of rain, of a time before the pharaohs, of a forgotten chapter in the human saga. And until we are willing to listen to what the stone is telling us, the greatest mystery of Giza will remain buried, not under the sand, but under the weight of academic dogma. The debate over the age of the pyramids and the Sphinx is just the beginning of the mystery. An even more profound and unsettling question lies in how they were built. The official narrative presents a picture of sheer manpower, tens of thousands of laborers using simple copper tools, wooden sledges, and earthen ramps to quarry, transport, and lift millions of multi-ton stone blocks. It is a testament to human ingenuity and determination, but a growing body of evidence, meticulously documented by engineers and independent researchers, suggests that this story is not just incomplete, it may be impossible. The level of precision and the nature of the tool marks found on the stones of Giza point to a technology that appears to be far beyond the capabilities of Bronze Age Egypt. Let's begin with the material itself. The most difficult stones to work with at Giza are not the millions of limestone blocks that make up the core of the pyramids, but the hard, dense granite used for the inner chambers, passageways, and sarcophagi. Granite is one of the hardest stones on Earth, ranking around a 7 on a Mohs scale of hardness. The tools the ancient Egyptians supposedly used, copper chisels and dolerite pounders, are simply not up to the task of cutting and shaping granite with any degree of precision. Copper is a soft metal, ranking only a 3 on the Mohs scale. It would be like trying to cut a steel beam with a plastic knife. While dolerite pounders could be used to slowly chip away at the stone, they could never achieve the perfectly flat surfaces and razor-sharp internal corners seen in the king's chamber. Engineer and manufacturing expert Christopher Dunn has spent decades studying the tool marks at Giza, and his conclusions are startling. He has identified numerous features that he argues can only have been produced by advanced machining. Inside the granite sarcophagus in the king's chamber, for example, the internal corners are so perfectly sharp and square that they defy explanation by primitive methods. To create such a corner inside a hollowed-out box would require a tool that could cut precisely without overshooting the mark, something like a 90-degree saw. Dunn also documented evidence of high-speed drilling. He found granite cores with spiral grooves that indicate a drill feed rate, the speed at which the drill bit sinks into the stone. That is 500 times greater than what can be achieved with modern diamond-tipped drills. This implies the use of a tool that applied immense pressure and rotational speed, a technology that we are only just beginning to replicate. Furthermore, the surfaces of many of the granite artifacts are finished to a level of flatness and polish that would be a challenge to achieve today. The so-called sarcophagus in the Serapeum at Saqqara, a massive 100-ton box carved from a single block of granite, has surfaces that are flat to within a few 10,000ths of an inch. To create such precision on a stone of that scale requires not just advanced tools, but a sophisticated understanding of measurement and geometry. These are not isolated anomalies. Similar evidence of advanced machining can be found on artifacts throughout Egypt, from the colossal statues of Ramesses II to the perfectly symmetrical stone vases from the earliest dynasties. These vases, carved from hard stones like diorite and granite, have narrow necks and hollowed-out interiors, a feat of craftsmanship that is difficult to explain with hand tools. The mystery extends to the transportation of the blocks. The 80-ton granite beams that form the ceiling of the king's chamber were quarried in Aswan, over 500 miles to the south. The official theory suggests they were transported on barges down the Nile. While this is plausible, the logistics of loading, unloading, and then lifting these massive blocks over 200 feet into the air to their final position in the pyramid are staggering. The proposed system of external ramps would have been a structure even more massive than the pyramid itself, requiring more material and more labor to construct. No evidence of such a massive ramp has ever been found. This has led to a host of alternative theories. Some researchers have proposed that the builders used a system of internal ramps or even water locks to float the blocks up through the pyramid. Others have ventured into more speculative territory, suggesting the use of a lost technology. Could the ancient builders have possessed a form of acoustic levitation, using sound frequencies to make the massive stones weightless? While this may sound like science fiction, ancient legends from around the world, including Egypt, speak of priests and magicians moving stones with the power of sound or thought. Another possibility is that the stones were not carved at all, but were cast in place using a form of ancient concrete, a theory championed by Professor Joseph Davidovitz. He argues that the blocks are a type of geopolymer made from a mixture of limestone, clay, and other chemicals, which was then poured into molds and hardened. This would explain the precision of the blocks and the lack of tool marks, but it has not been widely accepted by mainstream Egyptologists. The problem is not a lack of theories, but a lack of willingness to engage with the evidence. The official narrative of simple tools and brute force is maintained, not because it is supported by overwhelming proof, but because the alternatives are too uncomfortable. To admit that the ancient Egyptians, or some earlier civilization, possessed a technology that rivals or even surpasses our own would be to rewrite the entire story of human progress. It would mean that history is not a simple, linear progression from primitive to advanced, but a series of cycles, of lost golden ages and long periods of decline. This is the very idea that researchers like Graham Hancock have been advocating for decades. He argues that the evidence at Giza and other ancient sites around the world points to a global, advanced civilization of the Ice Age that was wiped out by a cataclysm around 12,000 years ago. The survivors, he suggests, passed on their knowledge to the cultures that followed, and the pyramids are the most spectacular and enduring legacy of this lost mother culture. This theory would explain the sudden appearance of sophisticated knowledge in ancient Egypt, the impossible precision of their stonework, and the deep astronomical and mathematical codes embedded in their monuments. It is a grand and compelling vision of our past, one that connects the dots between dozens of unexplained mysteries. But it is a vision that the gatekeepers of history have fiercely resisted. To accept it would be to admit that they have been wrong for over a century, that their carefully constructed timeline of civilization is built on a foundation of sand, and so the tool marks remain unexamined by mainstream scholars. The precision is dismissed as a fluke, and the questions of how are met with a wall of academic silence. But the stones themselves do not lie. They are a physical testament to a level of technological mastery that should not exist. And until we can explain how a Bronze Age culture could drill through granite at a rate 500 times faster than a modern drill, the question of who really built the pyramids and with what technology will remain the most profound and unsettling mystery of the ancient world. The impossible technology used to build the pyramids is only one layer of the mystery. An even deeper enigma lies in their design. The monuments at Giza are not just a collection of impressive structures, they form a single, integrated complex designed with a level of astronomical, mathematical, and geographical knowledge that is profoundly out of place in the ancient world. This was not just architecture, it was a message, an equation written in stone, a map of the cosmos on the surface of the Earth, and the knowledge it contains suggests its builders understood our planet and its place in the universe in a way that we have only rediscovered in the modern age. The most famous and fundamental feature of the Great Pyramid as design is its precise alignment to the cardinal directions. It is oriented to true north with an accuracy of within 3/60ths of a degree. This is a level of precision that is staggering for any pre-modern structure. To achieve it, the builders would have needed a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and a method for accurately determining true north, likely through observing the stars. But the alignments go much deeper, as Robert Bauval demonstrated with his Orion correlation theory. The layout of the three pyramids on the Giza plateau perfectly mirrors the alignment and brightness of the three stars in Orion's belt. This is not a rough approximation, the correlation is exact. Furthermore, the Giza pyramids are not aligned to the Orion's belt of 2500 BC, the supposed time of their construction. They are aligned to the position of the stars as they appeared in the sky around 10,500 BC, a time that aligns perfectly with the geological evidence for the age of the Sphinx. This suggests that the entire Giza complex was planned as a single, unified project, designed to be a map of the heavens on the ground, freezing a specific moment in astronomical time, a moment deep in our prehistoric past. This date stamp of 10,500 BC is known as the first time, or Zep Tepi, in ancient Egyptian texts, a mythical golden age when the gods walked the earth. Could the pyramids be a monument to this lost golden age, built by the survivors of a cataclysm that occurred at that time? The astronomical knowledge encoded at Giza is not limited to the stars. The site itself is located at a very special place on the Earth's surface. The latitude of the Great Pyramid is 29.979 to 458 degrees north. The speed of light in a vacuum is 299,792,458 meters per second. The numbers are identical. Is this a coincidence? Given the sheer number of other precise mathematical and geographical constants encoded in the pyramid, it seems unlikely. The pyramid also functions as a highly accurate calendar and a marker of the solstices and equinoxes. The way the shadows fall on the structure on these key astronomical dates indicates a deliberate design. For example, on the spring and autumn equinoxes, the setting sun creates a shadow that perfectly frames the Sphinx. This level of astronomical precision requires a long-term, sophisticated understanding of the Earth's orbit, its relationship to the sun. It is a knowledge that is supposed to be the product of the scientific revolution, not the Bronze Age. And then there's the mathematics. As we've touched upon, the very dimensions of the Great Pyramid encode fundamental mathematical constants like pi and the golden ratio, phi. The relationship between the pyramid's height and its base perimeter is a precise representation of the relationship between a circle's radius and its circumference. These are not simple, practical calculations. They are expressions of abstract mathematical principles. The question is not just how the builders knew these numbers, But why they would go to such incredible lengths to build them into a stone monument? What was the purpose of creating a giant stone computer that encodes the dimensions of our planet, the speed of light, and the grand cycles of the stars? One of the most compelling and thought-provoking answers is that the pyramid was designed as a time capsule, a repository of scientific knowledge intended to survive a global cataclysm and communicate with a distant future civilization, namely us. In this view, the builders understood that languages die, texts are destroyed, and civilizations collapse. The only way to preserve knowledge across tens of thousands of years is to encode it in a universal language, the language of mathematics, astronomy, and geometry. The pyramid is a message that requires no translation. It can be read by any civilization that has advanced enough to rediscover the fundamental constants of the universe. This theory explains the many strange features of the Great Pyramid: its lack of inscriptions, its incredible precision, its astronomical alignments, and its mathematical codes. It was not a tomb for a pharaoh. It was a library for humanity, a book in stone containing the essential scientific knowledge needed to rebuild a civilization after a global dark age. This would also explain the strange, almost ritualistic secrecy surrounding the site. If Giza is a repository of lost knowledge, then it makes sense that it would be guarded, both in antiquity and in the modern day. The gatekeepers of history, from the ancient Egyptian priests to modern archaeologists like Zahi Hawass, may not be engaged in a simple cover-up. They may see themselves as the guardians of a secret they believe humanity is not yet ready for. The implications of this grand design are almost too vast to comprehend. It suggests that our history is not what we think it is. It points to a lost chapter, a period of high advancement in our deep past that was wiped from the historical record by a global catastrophe. It suggests that the monuments at Giza are not the beginning of our story, but a message from a civilization that came before. And it suggests that the knowledge we pride ourselves on today, our understanding of physics, mathematics, and astronomy, is not a new discovery, but a rediscovery. This is the great, unifying theory that connects all the anomalies at Giza: the age of the Sphinx, the impossible technology of the builders, the hidden chambers, the astronomical alignments, and the mathematical codes. All of it points to a single, coherent conclusion. The Giza Plateau is the legacy of a lost civilization, and the official story of dynastic Egypt is just that, a story. A later chapter written by a people who had inherited a world of wonders they could no longer fully understand. They became the caretakers of a mystery, the preservers of a design whose true meaning had been lost to time. And for centuries, we have mistaken the caretakers for the creators. But the stones themselves tell a different story. They speak of a time when humanity knew the measure of the earth, the dance of the stars, and the harmony of the cosmos. And they stand today as a silent, enduring challenge to us to remember what we have forgotten.